Hey everybody, this is Matthew Doyle for Autodesk and VRGO, and we're going to be doing our first pre-production meeting here with Rocket 5 Studios to go over a Unity-based HTC Vive VR game project. And we're going to be doing this every week for the next 6 weeks or so. We're going to be covering everything from pre-production and prototyping and game design all the way up to creating art assets and putting them into the game engine, and ultimately we'll have a final product. And it's all going to be set up for, as I said, HTC Vive. So if you are a VR developer and you'd like to see the process or get some questions answered on developing for Unity games with HTC Vive, feel free to drop in the channel. We're going to be broadcasting Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 10 a.m. Central. And we're going to broadcast, like I said, for about 6 weeks. And then from that period, we'll probably have a lot of live tutorials as well. And our team that's actually doing the development, Rocket 5 Studios, Tim and Kathy, will probably also do some live streaming on their own that you guys will be able to watch. So let's go ahead and get started with our production meeting. I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you Tim and Kathy from Rocket 5 Studios. And let's see. So Tim and Kathy, are you there? Might want to unmute your microphone. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, there you are.
There we are.
Awesome. All right, so Tim and Kathy from Rocket 5 Studios, everyone. We're going to be working together on this Unity game project for HTC Vive. Tim, Kathy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves a little bit for the audience, as few as they may be right now. I'm sure we'll get more eventually.
All right, cool. So I will go first. I'm Tim Miller from Rocket 5, and I'm a game developer. I've been in the game development industry for, I don't even know, since 1996. I started as a tester at LucasArts in San Rafael, California, and was a level designer and a lead level designer at LucasArts, Nihilistic Software, Secret Level, a bunch of studios that are in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we moved to Toronto, Canada,
2009.
in 2009. Yeah.
Yep.
And at that time, we started our own company, Rocket 5, just because it was kind of a good time to go indie, and yeah, so we've been kind of doing that ever since. We've made a bunch of iPhone games, and our most recent one was the Phantom PI Mission Apparition, which is sort of like an adventure game, like where you're this little paranormal investigator haunting a little or searching around a little mansion, like solving puzzles.
Yeah, his clients are ghosts, so he's been brought to this mansion to solve a ghost's problem, because the ghost in turn is being pestered by a poltergeist. We like alliteration a lot.
And so anyway, so I do pretty much everything. We're a two-person studio, so kind of jack of all trades, as you have to be. Programming, design, production, some art, just anything that I can get my hands on. And then Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm an animator, I guess, at heart, and I'm less of a jack of all trades because I only really do what I want to do. But I like to handle the art. I guess you could say I'm the art director. And my background is sort of long and varied. We've both been working for about 20 years each. I started as a feature 2D animator at DreamWorks, which is a great first job. And then I moved over to games using CG animation. And I think my very first program was Lightwave, but then we switched to Maya, which was really cool. Anyway, I worked at LucasArts with Tim for about 4 years, and I've been switching back and forth for a little while between, I guess, 95 and 2012. I worked in 2D feature animation, 3D feature animation, game studios. I've worked at in LucasArts, Crystal Dynamics on Tomb Raider, and then I worked at another game studio. Oh, right, Secret Level. Yeah, and I was prototyping quadruped motion beast combat for them on Beast Riders. And I've also done 3D feature creature effects and TV animation series, which has been really great. Each one's taught me a different aspect of the pipeline, which I think brings me to the point where we're at Rocket 5, where I actually get to work on all parts of the pipeline, which is, I think, really fun.
Cool. Well, thanks for the introduction there. That was a nice little segue into our production meeting, and we're really happy to have you guys working with us. So I guess why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it, and we'll discuss what you guys have been working on.
All right, cool. So we are making a VR game for Autodesk. How do we describe it? So we haven't really talked too much about the project. Actually, we haven't really talked much at all in the open. So it is what we want to do. Well, maybe you can describe like the teaching aspect of what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the intro, you guys probably couldn't hear it, but basically, I did kind of describe it, but I'll go into a little more detail now. Actually, I think this is a good opportunity to do that. But so basically, we want to help developers, learn how to build VR projects. We want to figure out what is different about a VR project, whether it be from the art asset side of things, creating the assets, to the actual engine side, the code, putting it all together. What are some of the gotchas? What are tips and tricks for developing VR content? Is it really all that different? This is an exploration to find out, what is it like to develop a VR project, and is it really all that different from developing a normal project?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to go through the entire process from pre-production all the way up to a deployed game. It won't be a big game, but it'll be a nice little vertical slice type game. Obviously, in 6 weeks, about as much time as we have to get something done. We'll get what we can get done, but hopefully we'll answer all those important questions about VR development for those people out there who are aspiring and learning how to do the content themselves for whatever VR projects they may be working on.
Cool. Yeah, and that's how we're treating the development of this game. So what we're doing is we're taking an existing VR game. We're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. So what we're doing is taking a game that's already out there that I think is really fun. And we are sort of reverse engineering it. I've written a design doc. We're turning that into a art asset list, a production schedule, and then we're going to recreate that game over the next few weeks in Unity using various plugins, and we're going to code the whole thing and do all the art. When you guys finally get your hands on it, you'll have everything that we've generated. But I think there will also be some tutorials that you guys are going to put together.
Yep.
And there will also be hopefully some development videos. I'm just about to try my hand at Twitch for the first time, so I'm going to be hopefully doing some live development broadcasts as I actually make this game.
And definitely let us know when you do that so we can rebroadcast them at the same time on the Autodesk feed.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just waiting for my camera and my microphone to arrive from Newegg, and then I'll get all set up. So hopefully, I might actually be doing a test today if all goes well. I thought I was going to do it yesterday, but it got stuck on the truck.
Yeah.
So, and I've actually done quite a bit of work on the game already. What I'm going to do is, so I've got the game at a point where you can I've got enemies spawning, they're coming at you, you can shoot them. And it kind of already feels like the game. And what I'm going to do is once I got my Twitch side stuff set up, I'm going to sort of walk through the process of how I got this far, and kind of recreate it from there, and then pick up development at that point. So I'm going to basically stop working on the game as of yesterday, then remake where I'm up to on a Twitch stream, and then continue on from there. So it's more.
Why don't we go ahead and start out today by talking about the game design itself? Like just for the audience. Obviously, I kind of already know what we're doing, but let's discuss what it is that we plan to do, and maybe look at some concept art and any kind of design documentation you might have.
For sure. I'm going to share my desktop, but I'm just realizing that I should probably have my life scattered across the thing. So let me maximize this a little bit so we're not showing too much of our
personal life.
Dirty laundry. So yes. So okay. Real quick, the game we're going to be making is based on Zortex 20XX, which is one of the games that's in Valve Software's The Lab, and that's available for free on Steam. So if you've already got a Vive, or even I think it'll work with an Oculus, and if you've got the touch controller, so you can go download it from Steam for free. It's super awesome. If you've already got a Vive, you're probably already playing it because there's so much good content on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you have a chance to check out Zortex?
You know what? I've got about 30 games from Steam for my for my Vive that I'm trying to get through a backlog, and I haven't actually tried that one yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my time is so limited,
I
but
hear you.
I promise I'll play it for next time.
That's the thing about games. It's like you play a lot of games, and then you start making games, and you don't
Yeah.
play as many. You try.
Yeah,
So I've got my screen shared.
but I've heard of it at least. So, and I've seen images. So
It's really great. It's really, really great.
I've got my screen shared. I don't know if you can see that.
yes, I can.
Okay, I don't want to. Okay. So is that if I tab over to the Twist channel? Yes, I will see. I can see. Oops.
What's that?
Oops. YouTube
Sorry.
videos.
Yeah, that's the problem. I've got my browser open too many things. I should probably switch to a browser that doesn't have a bunch of tabs.
That's okay. We're doing it live.
We're all learning here. All right, so this is probably not super exciting, but this is basically a high-level game design document, which basically just describes everything that's in the game, essentially, not in too much detail. You can go super, super fine detail on game design documents. This one's a little higher level because, we're a small team. We already kind of know what we're making. So this is just an example of how to describe what's key in the game. And it's a way to, game design documents are really helpful for just making sure you're on the right path while you're working.
Well, he has to communicate his ideas to me too, and we have a lot of conversations. We're a husband and wife team, and so we spend pretty much all the time together. And for us, the work time and free time bleed into each other. But we find that this is a great point of departure, and this is actually how we work with all of our games. It starts with Tim making this big, giant, brain dump, and then we'll go in and do more collaborative work once this is done, and sometimes while this is being done. Can you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So,
sorry, it's going dark and light in here. We've got a nice bright window, but it's not great for camera apertures.
Yeah, no worries. It's fine.
So the document is going to describe things like, so as you can see, it's starting out with the target devices. So we set up ahead of time what we were going to make this game for. So we when we talked to you before, we knew we want to make the game in Unity. We decided it's going to be for the HTC Vive because we want to take advantage of controllers in the hand, and so and Unity is already Valve has already released some pretty nice plugins for Unity, so it's already pretty easy to get started with stuff. So they've got this Steam VR plugin, which you can download from the Unity Asset Store. They've also got a rendering plugin, which I'll be touching on later. I haven't really dug into it yet, but it's going to help us get good frame rates inside of our game, I hope, and to make it look good. And then we go into a gameplay overview, which just basically describes what the game is at a really high level. And it's basically a surviving against increasingly difficult waves of enemies for as long as possible. It's sort of a bullet hell style game. As enemies spawn, they shoot bullets out at you. And so what's cool about this game, what I really like about it, is it reminds me of when I was a kid, and you pick up a little spaceship or an airplane and hold it in your hand and sort of fly it around. And that's what this game is. When you first start the game, you're in just like this sort of cylinder, and you pick up a little ship that's floating in the center of the room, and then it becomes part of your hand. And then as I move the controller around, what I see is like the little ship. And then so enemies.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then so enemies start spawning on the opposite side of the room, and they come towards you, and at the same time they're shooting. So they shoot these little blobby bullets at you. And you aim at the enemies, and it automatically shoots. It's got like a little laser pointer that comes off the tip of the ship, and you shoot these guys. You can't shoot the bullets, but you can shoot the enemies. So you want to shoot them as quickly as possible because the longer they last, the more bullets come out. But the waves get more and more difficult. More enemies are spawning. More bullets are in the scene, and you end up with this thing where you're just sort of surrounded, like just in a cloud of bullets and enemies that are coming from everywhere. And so you're sort of navigating this minefield that's in the air of all these things that can kill you as you're aiming at other things and trying to destroy them. And then every once in a while, one will drop a power up, and this adds a layer of risk and reward. So when a power up appears, you actually, the enemy might have been way over there, so you might have to take a step across your room to grab that power up, and then kind of get back to safety. So you find yourself doing these weird like contortions around all these things as you in and out.
And that kind of reminds me of Tilt Brush too. I mean, Google's Tilt Brush, you kind of build an art cage around yourself. It's so amazing. I mean, my wife, when she tried it, she said, "Oh my God, I can see you up here in your office for hours at a time with club music on, creating 3D art. This is so you."
Yeah.
And it's just amazing to kind of be surrounded by that, and with the whole stereoscopic aspect of it, and it's like you could reach out and touch it.
Yeah,
and then the room space or the room scale VR, definitely to be able to reach across the room to do things. It's just so cool. Yeah,
it is super cool.
It's cool unless I'm working and animating and really focused, and Tim is playing this game, and then he keeps on rolling his chair into my chair. It's not so bad when I'm animating, but if I'm actually doing digital painting or sketching, it knocks the stylus out of my hand.
I know. I knocked a drink over on my desk the other day too, reaching for something. Just bonked.
Yeah.
Bonked right into the can.
Yeah, which is kind of fun. But it can get
the dangers of VR.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Cool. So the design doc goes on to describe the player, what its attributes are in this game. It's pretty simple since you're just holding it in your hand, but it's got health. It's got essentially one hit point. As soon as it gets hit by anything, it's dead. That ends the game. We've got weapons on the ship which are automatic fire, so you don't actually have to pull the trigger to shoot. It's essentially like a laser pointer. It's got a laser coming off the tip. And then
question on that. So do you feel like not having to pull the trigger is a more effective design?
I think in this case it works really well, because I think what you would just end up pulling the trigger anyway, which is just going to fatigue your finger.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was a conscious decision by the original designers, that it just made more sense. And I think it adds a bit more skill to it. So you can't really just kind of spray and pray like all over the room and just hit whatever you want. You actually have to, just like a laser pointer, if you want to point it, if you want to hit the thing, you actually have to point at it. So
definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really visceral. It's a great game. It's like you get a real sense of control, and I think that works really well with the 3D space too.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're in the action, and then your hand is like you're actually controlling it instead of just this kind of thumb.
Right.
You're actually using your whole hand and then your whole body too.
Yeah, and I think it also goes towards the idea of maintaining a level of comfort, because VR can get really uncomfortable after a while.
Yeah.
And so having a player constantly mashing the trigger, that's just one more thing to add to their comfort level,
Yeah. I think it's a bit more relaxing if because you can just kind of hold the thing. You don't have to worry about holding it a certain way. You can hold it any way that's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's another game in the in the lab, the archery game, which is kind of the exact opposite of that. You've got a bow in your left hand, which you're holding onto desperately, and then you're knocking arrows. You don't have to like pull them from a quiver or anything every time you shoot when it shows up, but you're constantly pulling the trigger. And I find that game is super fun, and I've played it a bunch, but my shoulders are sore, my hands are sore. Like after playing it for 5 or 10 minutes, it's like you actually feel.
Yeah. It's really active. It's great, and because it's so active, and it takes. The thing that's really great about those physical motions is they take, of course, less time than it does in real life, but you're actually having to take that time as fast as you can to knock the arrows and shoot them, and you have to line them up and everything. And it becomes so frantic, and the enemy are all around you, not just on the screen. The screen is everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was telling a friend of mine who I was demoing my Vive the other day. So we played the Brookhaven experiment, which is a zombie shooter where you have to look in all 360-degree direction because they come at you from everywhere. And he couldn't get that. He wanted to stay facing forward the whole time, and I had to keep telling him, turn around, they're behind you. And rather than turn his whole body, he would just turn his waist and look over his shoulder to shoot backwards. It's strange how people are so used to just looking straight ahead in their monitors. When they get a VR headset on, it's almost like they don't know what to do with themselves.
Right.
Yeah, we're in that uncomfortable stage. It's like first dating. You don't really know how to approach the medium yet, and also it's really uncomfortable to move your feet when you can't see the real world.
Yeah.
So there's the armchair VR, and then there's the whole immersive body experience. The fact that we have those cords coming out the back, I think that's a sort of
That doesn't help. Yeah.
yeah, it's a latent anxiety. I
Mhm.
think that
Yeah.
that we have to overcome
I,
as game.
I think wireless VR is going to be when it really starts to break out a little better. I know there's already development too on wireless VR headsets.
Yeah, or the VR backpack gaming computer that
or something like that. Yeah.
I've seen it. I've seen pictures. It's
Yeah.
I think that would be uncomfortable and heavy.
Yeah. I mean, I think HoloLens is untethered too. So Microsoft HoloLens, but because it's untethered, it has limits obviously to the graphical quality.
Yeah, and that's an issue even with the cords. It's the games have to be super light or they chug, and when they chug, you feel sick, right?
Yeah.
What's the frame rate that you need to achieve?
It's got to run at what 90 hertz.
Yeah, I mean it basically has to be in sync with the headset's frame rate, and I know with the HTC Vive and the Consumer Rift, they're both 90 frames per second.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for avoiding simulation sickness, as long as you're around 60 or higher, is probably good enough. But for avoiding any kind of issues where people feel like it breaks the immersion and stuff, it definitely needs to be in sync with the headset's native frame rate, which is 90.
Totally. Yeah, I've pushed the limit already. I've done some tests with our game Kitty Disastrous, and I just stuck the VR camera in an existing level, and it was full of geometry and real time lighting and stuff, and the headset just couldn't keep up. It was or the soft something couldn't. It was just like when I turned my head around, it was like skipping frames.
Soupy, yeah.
Yeah, it was
skipping frames and
big
stuff.
black
Yeah.
moments, and it was it was just terrible. So
but that game wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it certainly was not optimized for VR. It's not the problem of the hardware at all. It was just that I tried to do too much.
And I think that brings us back to the GDD is that we need to think about the limitations of our release candidate or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I mean that's
that?
I think that's one of the game design doc could say, but it's it actually kind of goes without saying. So the hardware and stuff, so you don't really have to get the details.
Exactly.
But
it's like developing for a mobile phone or something. You have to know the limits of the hardware.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the art has to, if I know that right off the bat, I can actually make the art, like especially character stuff, to maximize that experience as opposed to, starting with, I'm going to start with a 10 million poly count.
Right.
And then if I know that I'm going to be making low poly stuff, I'll use that in the design of the characters to its advantage, as opposed to trying to force, what would be normally a high poly kind of character into a low poly situation where it looks kind of janky.
Yeah. I know there are definitely going to be limits on the poly count and draw calls and the material complexity and things like that we'll have to work with. But I know you're used to doing that. You've worked in AAA studios. You're used to optimizing. Even when you're building a AAA game, you still have to squeeze every polygon you can out of your art assets and optimize your materials for consoles and things like that. So cool.
Okay. So I don't know if we want to keep looking over the doc, but
unless you think there's anything important we should cover on the stream, I don't necessarily think so. You can just send it to me though to have a look at it.
Yeah, for sure. We can make this live. I can share the link, and anybody can go look at it.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. We can post it somewhere on the area blog, perhaps, and maybe we can look at some of the concept art now.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sure.
So we've got a couple concepts. I'll let Kathy talk about these real quick. In the game. One of the things that the main thing that I conveyed to Kathy was that the enemies in the Valve game they're all essentially spheres. So that's one thing we wanted to make sure that we stuck with, because you don't want a lot of stuff sticking out of basically the hit area, because you'd be like, why I'm not shooting the wings that are sticking out because nothing's really got collision except for the center of the mass. So all of the concepts, at least for the enemies, sort of follow that principle.
Yeah, so we didn't want to make it exactly like Zortex. And when you start thinking about spherical ships, other than the Death Star and the ships that actually were in Zortex. It's really hard to go
Zortex
beyond
is
that.
really high tech.
Yeah.
They're spherical enemies that shoot, lasers and these blobs, and and you're in this really high tech sort of environment. And the little ship that you carry is this little, it's a little spaceship. It's just like a traditional sort of futuristic little.
Yeah. So the hero or the protagonist can go into different kind of dimensions. It can have wings and stuff like that. But the enemies, wanting to have just that one central core of collision, or what is it? What do you call it?
Yeah,
where you can hit it. Yeah.
The
hit area is really important. So Zortex actually uses a bee theme, which is really interesting because they have this honeycomb pattern on these screens around that are encompassing the environment. And if you look really, really closely, it's hard to see, but some of the ships actually look a little bit like bees. And so I was thinking, and Tim and I were thinking, well, what if we move away from ships and we start going into like animal shapes? Well, I was thinking firstly that maybe we would look for like dragons, maybe dragon type characters, just to be sort of fun and whimsical. And then from dragons, I thought, well, Pokemon-y shapes, because, when you start to simplify a dragon, and all of a sudden it looks like something that could be a Pokemon. But I didn't want to go there. And so I started drawing owls, because when owls are coming at you, they're really terrifying. And I think of birds as being tiny dinosaurs anyway. So they're adorable and cute, but they're actually like really efficient predators.
Yeah.
And I keep on thinking, what if we lived in a world with giant birds? It would be terrifying.
Yeah.
But anyway, so is the screen visible? Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can see it clearly.
So maybe if you can see my mouse. So we started with these kind of shapes, and this is sort of how our creative process goes. We start with drawing things we like, and then we have an artist that works with us freelance on occasion. She's worked with our past 2 games. Her name is Jen Sholin. Yeah, she's really awesome. And so quickly she drew up some sketches of maybe what these things would look in color. And so we have a whole bunch of different types of, there's 4 different classes here. If you look in the upper right corner, there's this owl with big, big eyes on either side. And we're thinking of moving in a more cybernetic or, mecha owl kind of direction. But this one would shoot lasers out of each eye. And that would create a grid pattern and like a laser coming out. And of course, if the laser bisects you, you're dead.
Right. So you've got to sort of navigate through them.
So it doesn't actually shoot bullets. But our first class would maybe be this one here. And it's like an owl. It can have expression change if we decided to go with that much type of character animation. But otherwise, we have these little, because we wanted a character that was simple. We wanted to work people watching these tutorials through the whole pipeline of like a character animation. So there would be the creation of the mesh, then there would be a very, very simple skeleton, and some, there'd be some rigid bodies and some soft bodies that would be bound to that skeleton, and they would be animated, and then they would be exported through the Maya LT exporter. We should mention that the 2 softwares I primarily use is Maya LT and Photoshop if I'm going to be doing any drawing or texturing. So we use Maya LT for the entire animation pipeline. We build.
So how do you find Maya LT? I had to put on my marketer hat. What do you think of Maya LT? Do you think it's got what you need?
So I've been using Maya since 2000. So I started with Maya version 1.5, and that was what I was using to learn on. And then when I first started LucasArts, we were using all kinds of different softwares. We're using Lightwave, which I don't think even exists anymore.
Actually, they do. I thought they went out of business myself, but I actually looked into it a couple of weeks ago. They're still out there.
Well, the guys that created the original Lightwave split off and created Modo.
Right.
Which is, like all of these softwares have their advantages and disadvantages.
Sure.
The reason why I like Maya isn't because it's not because I'm brand loyal, but it's because it's really, really stable. And so using a robust software that I know is going to work exactly the way I think it's going to work is really important to me because it saves me time. So I find Maya LT for me, because I don't do any rendering, I don't do much simulation because we work in games and our engine does the rendering and our engine does the simulations. I find it almost identical to the full Maya package. So I'm sold on Maya
Cool.
LT. The price point is
Oh yeah.
unbelievable, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why everyone doesn't use it. And because it has this export to the FBX file format, I can go across multiple different softwares if I need to. So it's fantastic for me. I mean, the rigging, the tools are great. And I think it has it for animation and modeling and rigging. I think it has most of the tools that I would use that the full version does. And if it doesn't, I can work around it easily. So yeah, 2 thumbs up for Maya.
Yay! This message brought to you by Autodesk. All right.
Or this message brought to a dev who's been using it for 16 years. I mean, I can't use many other softwares, but every company I've worked at almost uses Maya because it's efficient. And that's all it really comes down to. Is it efficient?
Time is money.
If it wasn't efficient, no, I'd be using something else.
Yeah, and it's really easy to write tools for it.
Oh yeah, with the script. Yeah, I don't really know how to Mel script, or I definitely don't know how to Python. And again, it's something I don't want to learn. Mel scripting is fairly easy, and so even I can write simple Mel tools, and it's just great. And Maya LT supports spell scripting and has the second version. So
yeah, well, I appreciate giving your input on that. I know why I like it. I pretty much the same reasons. Obviously I work at Autodesk, but I've been using Maya for a long time as well, and I find for the same reasons it's got a lot of power for doing character animation and stuff. And Maya LT is great because it's cheap. It does the same thing. So yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's get back to the topic at hand and talk some more about the concept art that you were showing us. Sorry to pull you off topic there.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, I teach animation as well, and it's my preferred software to teach in too because when someone's learning animation for the first time, you don't want the software to get in the way. You need to feel as quickly as possible. Like I say, Maya's just another pencil for people coming from 2D animation, and that's what you really want. And I'm going to go back to the. Can we go back to the? Yeah. Sorry, our hands are in the way of each other here. So looking at some of the other characters. So this one here would have.
By the way, I love the owl thing. I think it's perfect.
Oh, good. I was hoping it wasn't like I'm sorry. I'm quite goofy, and I like whimsical, goofy characters, and I love the idea of this bird shooting bullets out of their mouths. Because what would make a bird more terrifying is if it was armed with bullets that came from inside. It's like In fact,
well, I'm a little biased. I mean, I love anthropomorphizing animals for characters and stuff. I mean, the last project I worked on at Autodesk, we did a thing that I designed called Cat Fu, which was like a cat that knew kung fu. He was like Bruce Lee's cat, and he knew kung fu, and he was fighting all these other animals and stuff. But this is right up my alley. So I'm a little biased. Well, but I think it's great.
The game that we're currently working on, like for us, is called Kitty Disastrous, where you can actually move and act and be in the world as a cat. Like the cat is the protagonist and you are the cat, and you can do all the all of the terrible things that cats like to do in this world. Anyway, so we have different classes, and the first class would be obviously the one with just the symbol, the one bullet, which is the one that my cursor is going around right now. And then like the first one over here, this is another class with the lasers. But then we have the character along the bottom of the screen, which has 3 different types of weapons. It has bullets coming out of both eyes, and then when it opens its mouth really wide, it can like send out lasers or fire or something. And I think that would be terrifying, especially if it actually rotated as it flew at you. So you get a nice stream at the back that's doing this beautiful kind of double helix kind of patterning.
Cool.
And out the front would be this like barrage of bullets, that are rotating between actual bullets and lasers or fire. I like the idea of fire. Can we have fire, Tim?
Well,
maybe.
Fire's hard.
The design of it, yeah. If there are balls of fire, I suppose.
Yeah, fireballs. I would like fireballs.
That's really just an effect.
It'd be like coughing up mouse pellets, only they're on fire.
Now, so here's a quick question. So I've heard from other developers that doing effects in VR is a little different. Have you had any experience working with effects in VR yet? Like sprite particles and things like that, billboards?
No, I haven't really played with any effects in VR yet. That's
We
gonna
will.
be, yeah. That's
I don't know exactly
good
how
next
different, but
week.
I mean, I've just heard that there are some things in VR that it kind of kills the illusion,
Hmm.
so that you have to create them in a different way. I guess we'll find out then.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've thrown in some particles in like in the kitty disastrous test that I did. I had like this
Yeah.
swarm of like flies that were hovering around a garbage can, and they definitely looked cool.
They're really cool, actually. You can sort of move through them.
It adds a lot of depth. I've seen a lot in VR games that people have already sort of figured out that having stuff floating around in the world, even if you just put your Vive on while the game isn't running, and you're in that sort of empty gray space, I think it's got, I think there's little things floating around, or maybe that's Oculus. One of them just sort of has, just like little hints of things kind of floating around, and that immediately gives this sense of depth.
Yeah, it gives you an idea that you're in a volume, because these things are all around you.
Yeah. So I think in one thing in VR that I can imagine would mess with particles is the fact that you can get so close to things. So
you can look around it in all angles.
Yeah, and particles tend to be a little lower res, depending on what they are.
I'm gonna go. That's our delivery.
It's probably our.
Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Camera's here.
Probably our camera. Anyway, so I can see that breaking down, if you get right up close to something and you get to see sort of on the edge, so you're in a 3D environment and suddenly you're looking at this 2D thing that's maybe, probably a lot lower resolution, but
Yeah, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yep. Everybody's going to have that same problem.
Yep. I've also heard there might be issues with transparencies and stuff like that. I know there are definitely issues with like screen space effects, like light bloom and motion blur and things like that.
I think you have to be careful.
For one thing, it kills the optimization, but for other things, it's not something the human brain expects to see because it does it on its own already. Right. So
yeah. I don't think you'd want. I don't know. I've been wanting to try like a driving game or something, like a racing game. I wonder how they deal with. I just think the motion blur inside of a game would be a little disorienting.
Yeah, it might even cause simulation sickness.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're gonna wait for Kathy to come back from the front door. Here we go.
Our delivery's here.
Talk about the next piece of concept art.
Okay, cool.
Welcome back.
Hi. Sorry about that. So the next character that needed to be designed, well, we have one more class of enemy to go, but we'll show you next week. But anyway, the protagonist or the character player. So because we could go out, we don't have to stay with a sort of spherical kind of design. I was thinking that who would be the enemy of owls, or who would have the most to suffer from owls, I guess. And that would be mice. So we thought, well, how about a mouse character? But mice don't fly, and we have to be in the same world. So we were thinking about. Our studio dog is here on my lap. Yay!
Hello.
So we were thinking about a mouse riding in some kind of airplane. And the thing about designing for this kind of experience is you have to remember that the character is in front of the player. So even though it looks adorable, when I can see his little head, I don't know if we're actually going to be able to see much of the mouse. So we have to, I can come up with this design on paper, but then when we start to actually make it in 3D, I want to make sure that the appeal of the character and the design.
Yeah, I would worry about that normally in a regular monitor-based game, but because you can look at your controls and rotate them in your hand and stuff, it's a big difference. You will be able to see the mouse.
You're gonna
not the whole time, obviously, while you're pointing forward to shoot. But if you want to pull your hand back and look at him and rotate it over, I mean, that would be awesome. See a little squirming mouse, like trying to run or something while he's on his wings.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get killed while you're doing that. But I think
you actually, in the way the game is designed,
you bang.
Well, when you first enter the world, the little character is just sitting in the center of the world, and you could walk up to it and look at it, and then you pick it up, and then you're holding it in your hand, and you can look at it
Oh,
any
cool.
way you want.
You can examine it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so the simulation still hasn't started until you then actually start the game, and then you get this you'll get this menu where you can choose the game mode and stuff, and then the enemies will start coming at you. So there's plenty of time to look at the character in all angles.
And this brings up the other issue: is phobias. Anyone who's afraid of mice might have trouble holding this.
Well, that's one of the reasons you don't want it to be too realistic. I mean, this mouse has got little beady eyes, and he's got round, friendlier shapes. The owls are round, but they have these sharp beaks, and I'm not sure if we're going to give them talons and things like that. But the mouse, I think the one in the jetpack, or with the wings strapped to his back.
Yeah, the upper right.
That's my favorite. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do like the bottom right one too, because it's got kind of a World War II-y kind of feel, because he's got the propellers.
Yeah, the biplane. Yeah.
Yeah, and those big blasters on the side are kind of nice. But I really like the pose, the way he's kind of hanging there.
Yeah, and it actually, I think it could be the most engaging as well, because we would put a simple armature in him, and then as he's banking left and right, we could have him swing a little bit. And so there's this sort of dangly, pendulous feel to him. And his little legs can be either kicking or just moving with it, because he wouldn't be frightened. I mean, this guy's a hero.
Yeah, and you could probably use some spline IK on his tail.
Yeah, or
kind of give it a wave.
I was going to try to get Tim to see if we could make like a particle stream for a tail.
Oh, that'd be cool too. Yeah.
It'll just follow, and I don't have to animate it, or it doesn't have to be dynamic.
Yeah, you can do 3D. I don't know. You can do mesh particles in Unity. I don't know if you could make it. I have to look into that to see if you can
like a solid object. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've always wondered how they do that. There's a lot of games that have effects like that. I mean, I remember what was it, Heavenly Sword, when that came out on PS3 launch title. How it had the sword with the I don't know if it was her hair, right? It was
her hair.
Ribbon in her hair.
It was her hair.
Or it was her hair.
There was a game before that had a fully dynamic scarf on the character, I think. And,
there've been a few.
It was like a vampire.
I can't remember.
Yeah. Okami was really beautiful.
Yes, with the dog. I remember that one.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, the thing is you always have to weigh R&D time against actual production time and what your production needs are. But if we have the time to look into this, it would be, I think, a really interesting effect. But otherwise, I mean, I could animate the tail, or we could have a dynamic tail.
Yeah, we could set it up sort of like a ragdoll or something. We could even do that with the arms. We'll try a few different things and see what looks best.
Yeah,
cool.
To decide what's going to be best, what's going to work with the game. I mean, after all, we have all these enemies and all these things designed on paper. It really is when you start to make the game that you really have to find the fun and see what works best. So, all of these design documents and concept work, it's all just sort of, it's very flexible. These are all living kind of documents. Isn't until you actually get into the game space that you start to see what works. What will people identify with? What will make people feel like that the experience is worthwhile?
Yeah. What do you envision for the background? So obviously it could just be black, but it might be nice to have something in the background.
Yeah, we haven't thought too hard about the background, but I think the first thing that came to mind was that you're in a clearing in a forest, and you're just surrounded by a stand of trees just ringing around you. So the arena is rather small because it doesn't need to be big, because you can't really move around too far in your room. Usually you're going to finish something.
I love the idea of the clearing being like a circle of light, and the trees being really dark and ominous, and the owls coming swooping out of you out of the dark.
Yeah, coming between the gaps between the trees, just out of the blackness, so maybe some fog back there.
Well, I was working at DreamWorks once, and it was, I don't know, I was going home at 2:00 in the morning or some terrible thing, and a very large owl actually came out of the darkness and swooped at me, and I actually had to dive to the ground to avoid its claws.
So you have some real life experience on this game then.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't afraid of it. It was more like it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and then I realized it was coming at me. But which is why I think it would make a really great and compelling enemy. I mean, I love owls, but they are raptors, and
they can be creepy. Yeah, especially the way they can turn their heads upside down and stuff.
Yeah, and those unblinking eyes. Yeah, they're great. I love them.
All right, well, all this concept art looks fantastic. I look forward to seeing it built.
Thanks. So
yeah,
do
us
I.
too.
Yeah, that's next. That's next.
Yeah, so you want to move on to the next thing? Do we have anything else we want to look at this week?
I don't think we have any more art to show you. Unfortunately, we're not on my development machine. We're on my MacBook. I'm developing it on a Windows computer, which is over here.
Mm-hmm.
But since I didn't have my camera for the Windows machine yet, I can't share that desktop. But yeah, so I think visually that's all we have. I sort of described what we had in terms of gameplay earlier. Matthew, if you want to check out an early build, I can send you progress as I go.
Yeah, that'd be great. And maybe I can, if I have the build, so maybe going forward next week, if you start delivering the build to me, I can play it on my end and show it on our feed, our Twitch stream from my end.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see
the
progression, how it goes from rudimentary objects and basic gameplay all the way through. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the cool things about this project that we're doing with you guys is we're going, start to finish. Yeah, and then people will get to use these assets and remake them in any kind of game that they want.
Yeah.
So are you already prototyping with the Vive?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Yeah. So we'll look forward to seeing that next week.
You might see it sooner than that. So if I do some live broadcasts and if you guys rebroadcast or however that works, then you might see stuff ahead of time. One of the things that that I've already sort of that's really wild is like you have to to play the game for real. I mean, there's certain stuff you can do without the headset, just testing stuff, but most of the time I got to take off my glasses, put the headset on, find the controller, and then and test. Basically, shoot the thing or see if something's spawning at me. You look up to see if there's any errors in my console. It's going to be really interesting to see how that works and to see if I can find out ways to minimize that a little bit. To not have
Tim, Kathy, do you mind real quick going full screen with your webcam?
Would I mind going full screen?
Yeah, so we can get a nice big image of you guys talking.
Oh, are we not?
for the closing.
Wait, I think you do.
But great concept art, by the way. I think this is definitely going in the right direction. I think
this will
be fun to play.
Great,
do I just
thank you.
Stop sharing my screen?
Stop sharing screen, yeah. Jen.
Yeah, there you go.
Our artist Jen
nice big now.
is
Awesome.
super talented.
So yeah, we look forward to that. Then, if you are going to broadcast, just send me an email, and we'll base I'm tongue tied today. We'll be sure to cross promote that on our Autodesk channel here.
Cool.
And what is your Twitch stream actually? So we can, if anyone that's watching that wants to just go straight to your stream and add you.
We are twitch.tv/Rocket5 Studios.
Rocket 5 Studios, and
this
that's
is Rock-
5, the number, right?
Yeah, the number 5.
So Rocket number 5 Studios, all one word. Got it.
Yep.
All right.
And this
Hello,
is
what's his
Rocket.
name? His name is Rocket?
Yeah. He's
Awesome.
our
The
mascot.
studio is named after.
Yay.
Yay. He likes to melt. He's a wacky kind of dog.
Go Rocket. All right. Yeah, so you guys were asking me what we were going to call this project, and I came up with a name for my video series that I'm doing. It's called VRGO. It's kind of like a Vertigo, but it's VRGO. So,
Okay.
But as far as the project goes, why don't you guys come up with a name?
I haven't been able to do anything super creative.
We will by next week.
I've just been calling it Autodesk.
I mean, I could throw stuff at you, Project Inception or something really goofy and weird like that. But I think you guys might have a better idea.
Yeah, now that we've got a theme, with the owls and the mouse player character, maybe that'll lead to something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we could just name it after the game.
Yeah, right. So maybe the code name becomes what we actually call this.
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll think about it.
Cool. Something for the agenda for next week, I guess.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So next week we'll look forward to having a name and also possibly seeing the prototype in action. And what else should we talk about?
Well, next week, according to our schedule, we have a rough schedule, and I can just outline it. I can post the schedule later. It's a 6-week project. The first 2 weeks would be the first playable, and then the next 2 weeks would be our alpha. The 5th week would be the beta, and the last week would be our gold release. I've got myself scheduled as doing the character concepts this week. Then I'll need about 2 weeks to do the character meshes, a week to do the character rigs, I'll give myself a week to animate them because the animation is going to be really simple.
Mhm.
And then Tim will have the final week to do any kind of revisions and stuff like that.
Right.
We're not going to be texture painting these characters. We're going to be using just solid colors with ambient occlusion in them.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in terms of the background, concepts start this week, and then we'll take the next. Let's see, this week is the second week, so through week 3, 4, and 5 would be to build the background elements. And again, leaving the last week just completely open from art. Any kind of art would be revisions at
Tuning
that
and
point.
polishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But I
so
think
other than the prototype, maybe we could see some more concept work next week. Maybe some really early modeling efforts.
Yeah. Some of the
Maybe.
meshes
Okay.
in the project. I haven't decided whether I'm going to take everything to a just a sort of a base model kind of, so Tim can get them in there without any animation and see how the shapes work. And then the second week would be finalizing all the meshes.
that's probably a good idea.
Great.
Yeah, that's generally how we work anyway.
I'm trying to get her to test out doing a live stream of one of the character models on Twitch. We'll see.
Yes, you definitely have to do that. I'm
God.
sorry. I'm gonna put that in writing.
That's in our contract.
No, but I think people would love to see that. People definitely like to watch artists work. So if you can, I don't expect you to, but if you can, that would be cool. I would watch it too. So
Okay, I'll try.
yeah,
Not
but
a
but
big-
again, I also want to see Tim coding. That would be cool too. I'd like to see what he's deving and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm already planning on doing that. That's gonna be weird. I've never done. I've made some video tutorials before, but I've never done one like live, so that'll be interesting.
And I've never done any. I mean, I teach, but to be honest, watching someone animate is like watching paint dry to me.
Yeah.
Some people are interested.
Some people are into that. I mean, I've heard of this whole idea of gaming by proxy these days, where people don't have the time to play. There's so many games out there,
Yeah.
obviously they can't play them all, so they just go on Twitch and watch other people play. And I think some people want to do art by proxy too. They want to watch other artists work. So there is an audience for it anyway. Anyway, if you have time.
Hey, I want to know something. I'm looking at the Twitch thing on my other screen. Why aren't you in there? Why isn't your little face in the corner or something?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm in there. Let's see. I'm gonna say hello. Hello. There you go.
There. Can we see it now? Is it there?
Let's see.
It says Autodesk Game Dev on the chat channel. I'm in there. Yeah.
No, I mean like your actual video face in the corner of our feed. Like all I see.
Oh yeah, because I'm only showing your screen right now. Here, look. I'll show my screen.
Yeah,
Thanks.
everybody wants to see who we're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little lagged, so you have to wait a few seconds.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Where's that guy, Rocket? The thing is that anytime we're doing anything, where we're sitting here talking in our monitors, Rocket insists on being on usually my lap.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah. The only issue is I can't. So I can't share my webcam with Skype and the streaming service.
Oh yeah.
So one or the other gets shut off. So that's why you can't see me.
Oh, I see. Because Skype is using the camera.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense. Cool.
But
I
all right,
figure out a way to do a little picture-in-picture.
Yeah, I think this was a good meeting. We got a lot accomplished, and I like what I see. You guys are doing a great job, and we'll look forward to next week.
Awesome.
All right. See
All
you
right,
then.
so Tim and Kathy, thanks for taking the time with us today. And this is Matthew Doyle for Autodesk and VRGO. I hope you enjoyed episode 1. Be sure to tune in for episode 2 next week at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we'll talk more about some more concept art. We'll look at the prototype, and we'll answer any VR questions that you guys have. All right, until then, you guys have a good week. A good week and a good weekend. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.